The stars stretched out endlessly, like an infinite sea of lights. As Captain Elias Hart stared through the viewport of the solstice, his deep-set eyes searching for something beyond the darkness. He had been a pilot for years, but nothing ever quite prepared him for the galaxy's vastness, its mysteries, and its dangers. Today, however, something felt different. The mission had taken an unexpected turn. His ship, a medium-sized exploration vessel, was supposed to be on a diplomatic journey, seeking peace with the Zeni, an alien empire that had been quiet for centuries. But as the crew approached the edge of the Zene space, everything went wrong. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a routine scan. The scanners buzzed with their usual hum, and the officers moved around the ship with practiced ease. Elias sat in the command chair, watching the crew and listening to the low murmur of the ship's systems. But then, a sudden and sharp alarm echoed throughout the ship, cutting through the hum of everyday operations like a knife through silence. It was a warning, but there was no time to decipher it. Before the attack came, blasts of energy shot out from the shadows of the stars, catching the solstice by surprise. The ship shuddered, and the lights flickered. Red lights filled the halls, casting an eerie glow over the panicked crew. Elias's heart pounded, but he kept his cool, barking orders as the ship's hull groaned under pressure. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," he ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. The crew scrambled to respond, but it was clear the attack was more than they had anticipated. The enemy ships were far superior, fast, aggressive, and heavily armed. The ship rocked again, and Elias was thrown from his chair. His vision blurred for a moment, but he quickly regained his senses, gripping the edge of his control panel. The solstice was taking heavy fire, and it was only a matter of time before the ship would be too damaged to defend itself. A loud explosion sent everyone scrambling. The metal of the ship groaned as if it were alive, a horrible, twisting sound that made Elias's blood run cold. He slammed his fist on the comms panel. "We're not going to make it out of here. Evacuate to escape pods." His voice was sharp, authoritative, but beneath it, a thread of desperation was evident. His crew had little time to escape, and no plan could guarantee their survival. The ship lurched violently to the left, and Elias was knocked off his feet again, this time sliding across the cold metal floor. He struggled to regain his balance, but before he could reach the door, the entire ship seemed to fall into chaos. Another blast hit the ship's engines. The lights died. The engines sputtered out of control, and everything fell into darkness. Then the crash came. The floor seemed to drop out from beneath him, and Elias found himself tumbling through the wreckage of the solstice. His world spun, filled with debris and the sound of alarms, but through the confusion, there was one clear thought in his mind: survival. He couldn't focus on anything else. He had to survive. He had to live to help his crew escape. Everything around him was a blur of sounds and shapes. He grabbed onto a piece of metal, pulling himself upright as the ship around him crumbled. There was no sign of the crew, no voices, no movement, just the eerie silence of the aftermath. Elias stumbled through the wreckage, hoping to find someone, anyone, still alive. His breathing was ragged, his head pounding from the impact. His uniform was torn and his hands were covered in cuts and bruises, but he kept moving. The ship's hallways were dark and narrow, filled with twisted metal and shattered glass. As he limped through the corridors, he noticed something strange: a faint glow. It flickered like a distant star, bright against the dark backdrop of destruction. Curious and desperate, Elias made his way toward the light. His legs were heavy with exhaustion, but he pushed through the pain, his mind focused on reaching the source. As he rounded the corner, his eyes widened in surprise. Standing in the doorway, bathed in the dim light of a small console, was a figure. It was tall, graceful, and radiated an energy that he couldn't quite place. Elias blinked in disbelief. This figure was not human. She was an alien unlike anything he had ever seen before. Her features were sharp, her skin a pale green that shimmered slightly in the low light. Her eyes, a deep violet, looked at him with a calm intensity that made his heart skip a beat. Her long, silvery hair flowed around her like a gentle waterfall, and her presence was as ethereal as it was powerful. Elias froze for a moment, taken aback. Was she one of the Zeni? Had she come to finish what the attackers had started? But before he could ask, she stepped forward, her expression a mixture of concern and calm. The alien princess moved toward him with a grace that seemed to defy the chaos around them. Elias instinctively reached for his sidearm, but before he could even touch it, she was upon him. "Don't be afraid," she said, her voice soft yet commanding, like the sound of wind rustling through leaves. "I'm here to help." Elias stared at her, confusion and disbelief filling his mind. She spoke English. And not only that, there was something familiar about her, a warmth that tugged at his memories. You saved me?" Elias asked, his voice rough. He was barely able to form the words, his mind racing to understand the situation. The alien princess gave a small nod, her violet eyes meeting his. "I did!" "But now you must trust me. We are not safe here." Her tone was gentle, yet there was an urgency in her words. "We have to leave this place. The Zany will not stop until they destroy every last one of you." Elias opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say anything, the sounds of enemy soldiers echoed in the distance, their voices growing louder with every second. His heart pounded in his chest. There was no time to argue, no time to question. He followed the princess as she led him toward a hidden exit, her presence calm and unwavering as the world around them fell into chaos. As they ran through the wreckage, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that he had seen her before, that her face was somehow familiar. He had no memory of meeting her before, but there was something about her that stirred a deep connection within him. The two of them dashed through the darkened halls, avoiding the wreckage and the growing danger. Elias's mind raced, but one thought stood out above the rest. The alien princess had saved him. She had pulled him from the wreckage, risking her life for his. He had to know why. Elias had barely recovered from the chaos of the crash when he found himself running alongside the mysterious alien princess, Zelina. Her movements were swift, purposeful, and filled with a quiet grace. The sound of enemy footsteps grew louder behind them, the harsh metallic clanking of their boots echoing in the wreckage. Elias's chest tightened as he struggled to keep pace, but Zelina, despite her alien appearance, seemed to glide effortlessly through the ruined ship. They reached a hidden chamber at the far end of the ship, a small, dimly lit room that looked out over the planet's surface. The walls were lined with strange markings, symbols Elias didn't recognize, but in that moment, he had no time to wonder about them. Zelina closed the door gently behind them, sealing them off from the oncoming threat. "Are you hurt?" she asked, her voice calm but laced with concern. Elias realized for the first time since he had been pulled from the wreckage that he hadn't felt any pain. His body was bruised and battered, but he wasn't in agony like he should have been. "No," he said, shaking his head slightly, still trying to make sense of the situation. "I'm fine." "But why did you help me? You could have just escaped yourself." "Why risk your life for a human?" Zelina turned and looked at him, her violet eyes reflecting the soft light of the chamber. There was a quiet intensity in her gaze, something both deep and wise, as though she had lived 1,000 lifetimes and seen things Elias could never imagine. "I did not help you because you are human," she said slowly, her voice steady and full of conviction. "I helped you because I believe in the possibility of peace between our peoples. The Zeni Empire is on the brink of war, and the people who attacked your ship, those who are chasing us now, are part of a faction that believes in nothing but destruction. I cannot stand by and let them destroy what we could build together." Elias blinked, not fully understanding. "You believe we can make peace with the Zeni?" he asked, his voice tinged with doubt. "After all this? After everything that's happened?" Zelina gave a small, sad smile. I have to believe in it. If I don't, then all is lost. You see, Elias, I am the heir to the Zany throne. My people believe in power, in dominance over others, but I do not. I have spent my life trying to find a different way, a way that doesn't involve war. And you, humanity, may be the key to that change. Elias took a step back, his mind reeling. The princess, Zelina, was royalty? The thought seemed impossible. She didn't have the cold, demanding air Elias had expected from someone of her rank. Instead, she was warm, calm, and thoughtful, like a person who truly wanted peace and not just power. I had no idea, he said, his voice quieter now. You're the princess of the Zany? The one they speak of in whispers? Yes, she said simply, her voice softening. I was born to lead, but I do not wish to rule with force. I want to lead with compassion, with understanding. My people, my father, he does not share this vision. That is why I am running. That is why I risked my life for you. Elias didn't know what to say. He had always been taught that alien species, especially ones as powerful as the Geni, couldn't be bargained with, couldn't be trusted. His entire life had been spent preparing for a future where humanity's dominance over the galaxy would be questioned, not the other way around. But standing before him was a person who wasn't like the others. She wasn't like the stories of cold, calculating aliens who saw humans as weak or insignificant. Zelina, despite being born into the very heart of the Zany Empire, seemed to be nothing like the ruthless warriors he had been told about.
You speak of peace, but how can we stop them? Elias asked, his voice heavy with the weight of uncertainty. How can we change what's been happening for centuries?
The Zeni are known for their conquest, their cruelty. How can you change all that? How can I help? Zelina's expression hardened for a moment, the sadness in her eyes giving way to a quiet determination. I do not expect you to change everything in a single moment, she said, but I believe you can help me rally the forces that still seek peace, that still desire harmony. The galaxy is not filled only with those who wish for war. I know this because I have met them. Beings from all corners of the universe who long for something more. We will need to reach out to them, to unite them. But first, we must secure my place in the Genet Empire. Elias was silent for a long moment, absorbing her words. He had no idea what he was getting into. No idea what risks lay ahead. But there was something about her, a quiet strength, a spark of hope, that stirred something deep within him. He had been on 1,000 missions, faced impossible odds. But this was different. This wasn't about military might or tactics. It was about something much larger. I'll help you, Elias said, his voice firm now. I don't know how, but I'll help you. Zelina nodded, her eyes softening with gratitude. Thank you, Elias. That is all I ask. Together, we will find a way. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden sharp noise from outside the chamber. The sounds of the enemy's footsteps were growing louder, closer. Zelina quickly moved toward the small, hidden panel in the wall, her hands moving with a purpose Elias had come to respect in just the short time he'd known her. She pressed a series of symbols into the panel, and with a soft hiss, the wall opened, revealing a hidden tunnel leading away from the wreckage of the ship. We must go, Zelina said, her voice low and urgent. We cannot stay here. The enemy is too close. Elias followed her without hesitation, the weight of their mission settling on his shoulders. He knew this wouldn't be easy, that there would be countless challenges ahead. But as he looked at Zelina, he saw not just an alien princess, but a person who had risked everything for the chance at peace. for the chance to change the future. They moved quickly through the tunnel, the soft sound of their footsteps the only noise in the otherwise silent passage. As they neared the end of the tunnel, Elias couldn't help but wonder about the future, about Shalana's people, about the war she so desperately wanted to avoid, and about the role he would play in it all. But for the first time, he felt a sense of purpose. A sense that, despite the chaos around him, something good could come from this. Perhaps, together, they could change the course of history, and maybe, just maybe, he would be part of that change. The underground tunnel was narrow and dimly lit, its walls cold to the touch as Elias and Zelina hurried through it. The walls, made of smooth, dark material, seemed to hum with an energy he couldn't quite understand. Elias could hear his footsteps echoing in the silence, a steady rhythm that somehow matched the pounding of his heart. His mind was still racing. The ship had been destroyed, the crew scattered, and his only ally in this strange, hostile world was an alien princess. There was no turning back now. His path was set. Zelina led the way, her pace steady, her movements precise. Her silvery hair swayed gently with every step, and Elias couldn't help but notice the grace in her actions. Despite the danger that loomed over them, there was an air of confidence around her, something that made him believe in her cause. He had no idea how she had managed to survive the chaos, how she had risked everything to save him. But one thing was clear. She wasn't just any princess. She was different, and maybe, just maybe, she was the key to saving not just herself, but countless others. They reached the end of the tunnel. After what felt like an eternity, a large door stood before them, its surface sleek and metallic. Zelina approached it and pressed a series of symbols into the panel next to the door. Elias watched her, his mind still reeling from everything that had happened. He had barely processed the fact that he had been saved by an alien princess, much less that she was the heir to the Zanai throne. The Genie, an empire known for its military might and its ruthless pursuit of power. The very people who had attacked his ship. But now, Zelina was not only the princess of an empire, she was a rebel. A princess who had turned her back on the ways of her people to fight for peace. And that, Elias realized, was why she needed his help. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a room filled with monitors and consoles. It was a command center, but it looked nothing like the military operations rooms Elias had seen in his years of service. This place was calm, organized, yet it radiated a quiet urgency. The walls were adorned with strange symbols, similar to the ones Elias had seen in the tunnel, and the air hummed with an energy that felt both alien and familiar. "We are safe for now," Zelina said, her voice soft but full of determination. She turned to Elias, her violet eyes meeting his. "But we cannot stay here for long. We have to make our move soon." Elias nodded, trying to steady his breath. "What do we do now? What's the plan?" Zelina walked over to one of the consoles, her fingers moving swiftly over the controls. She spoke as she worked, her voice steady, confident. "The first step is to reach the outer colonies. We need to make contact with the leaders of the human settlements on the fringes of the galaxy. If we can get them to support me, we can gather the forces we need to take back the throne. My father, the current emperor, will not surrender power willingly. He believes in strength, in dominance, and in control. He will fight until the very end to keep his hold over the empire." Elias followed her to the console, his mind still spinning. But how do we even begin to get their support? The human colonies are scattered, and they have their own problems. They're not going to just join a rebellion led by an alien princess. Even if you want peace, that doesn't mean they'll trust you. Exelina paused for a moment, her fingers hovering above the controls. Her expression was thoughtful, as if considering something far beyond what was in front of her. "I know it won't be easy," she said, her voice steady but full of resolve. "But I've spent years studying human culture. I know your people."
I know what you value, what drives you.
What drives you?
And I believe that if we can show the human leaders that I stand for something different, something better, they will listen.
Elias frowned, still unsure. But how do you plan to prove that?
How can you convince them when they've never trusted your people before? When they've been taught to fear the Zeni? Zelina turned to face him, her eyes glowing with a quiet fire. I will show them who I truly am, she said simply. I will show them that not all Zeni are the same. That there is a better way. Elias couldn't help but admire her determination. She wasn't just speaking words, she was ready to fight for what she believed in. She wasn't just fighting for herself, but for something far larger, something that, if successful, could change the course of the galaxy. But Elias still had doubts. Could one alien princess really make such a difference? Could they convince the human colonies to risk everything for a chance at peace with the Zeni? The idea seemed far-fetched. But then he remembered the moment she had saved his life. He remembered the calm in her eyes, the urgency in her voice, and the trust she had shown in him. Maybe, just maybe, there was more to this than he realized. We'll need to contact the colonies, Zelina continued, pulling Elias from his thoughts. We'll need to reach out to the leaders. And we'll need to convince them that this is not just a fight for the throne, but a fight for the future of both our peoples. I can't do this alone. That's where you come in. Elias raised an eyebrow. Me? How can I help you with that? I'm just a pilot, not a diplomat. Zelina smiled. A small but genuine smile. You are more than just a pilot, Elias. You are a human. And that gives you something I don't have. Your people's trust. They will listen to you. They will follow you. We need you to speak for them, to show them that I am not just a princess, but an ally. That we can work together. That we can build something better. You will be the bridge between humanity and the Zeni. Elias stood still for a moment, his mind racing. He had never seen himself as a leader. He had always been a soldier, a pilot, someone who followed orders. But this was different. Zelina was asking him to do something far beyond what he was used to. She was asking him to step into a role he had never even considered. And yet, for the first time in his life, he felt a sense of purpose. I'll do it, he said, his voice firm. How? I don't know how, but I'll help you get the human colonies on our side. Zelina's smile grew wider, and for a moment Elias saw something he hadn't seen before. Hope. Thank you, Elias. That means more to me than you know. The two of them stood in the command center, the weight of their mission heavy in the air. Outside, the galaxy stretched out before them, filled with endless possibilities. It would not be easy. There would be obstacles, dangers, and enemies who would stop at nothing to see them fail. But for the first time, Elias felt that they could succeed. Together, they could change the future. Zelina turned back to the console, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. I've made contact with the first colony. They are hesitant, but they are listening. Now we wait. We wait for them to decide whether they will stand with us or against us. Elias nodded, his mind already turning to the next challenge. He knew they had a long road ahead of them. But for the first time since the attack on the solstice, he felt that maybe, just maybe, they could win. And that, he thought, was worth fighting for. Elias couldn't sleep. The weight of their mission was pressing on him. As he lay on his cot in the small room beneath the surface of the ruined planet, his mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. The brief peace they had found in the hidden base was now broken by the sound of distant blasts echoing through the underground tunnels. Zelina was right. Time was running out. The enemy was closing in, and they had no more time to waste. He turned over in his bed, staring at the ceiling. For the past few days, he had done everything he could to help Salina make contact with the human colonies. The first colony had been hesitant, but they had responded. Now, several others were following suit. They were starting to listen, starting to believe that peace could be achieved. But there was still so much to do, so much uncertainty ahead. Elias had never been in a situation like this. There had been times when his orders were clear, and he knew what needed to be done. But this was different. This wasn't a battle of guns and missiles. This was a battle of ideas, of trust, and of people who had been taught for centuries that there was no hope for peace with the Zany. And yet, here they were, an alien princess and a human pilot, fighting for that very peace. Elias sat up, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. He rubbed his eyes, trying to shake off the exhaustion that clung to him. He had to stay focused. Zalane was counting on him. The colonies were counting on him. He couldn't afford to let them down. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. He stood up quickly, his heart racing. He hadn't been expecting anyone. Was it the enemy? Had they found them? The door creaked open, and Zelina stepped inside. Her face was calm, but Elias could see the tension in her eyes. She looked just as worn as he felt, but there was still that fire within her, the same fire that had driven her to stand up against her people, the same fire that had saved him when no one else would. "Elias," she said softly, her voice a comfort in the stillness of the room.
"We need to move quickly."
The Zany forces are closer than we anticipated. They know where we are.
Elias nodded. He had been expecting this. The Azene weren't going to let a small rebellion stand in their way. If they were going to have any chance at survival, they needed to act now. "Do you have a plan?" Elias asked, standing up and grabbing his gear. Zelina stepped forward, her violet eyes steady.
We do. The human colonies have agreed to help us, but they need us to make a bold move.
"We have to strike at the heart of the Zany Empire. We need to take control of the capital, show my people that there is another way."
Elias frowned. "You're asking us to attack their capital? That's insane."
Zelina smiled, a small, knowing smile. "It may sound insane, but it is our only chance. If we can take the capital, we can force the Genie leaders to listen. We will show them that the old ways no longer work, that peace is possible even with them. But we must act quickly before they can regroup."
Elias took a deep breath, nodding. He had never been one to shy away from danger, but this was different.
They were going up against an empire, an entire army. The odds were slim, but there was a glimmer of hope in Jalina's eyes, and Elias found himself believing in her.
"How do we do this?" he asked, ready to hear the plan no matter how impossible it seemed. Zelina's face grew serious, her posture straightening.
We have to move swiftly. The first step is to disrupt their communications.
"We'll take out their communication centers so they can't call for reinforcements. Then we'll move in with a small elite force, just the ones we trust, and make our way to the heart of the capital.
We'll need to get to the throne room, where my father is. If we can reach him, we can end this war before it begins."
Elias was silent for a moment, processing what she had said. It was dangerous, reckless even, but Zelina was right about one thing. If they didn't act now, they might never get another chance.
"All right," Elias said finally, his voice steady. "Let's do it! For peace!"
Zelina smiled at him, a grateful look in her eyes.
"Thank you, Elias. I couldn't do this without you."
The two of them left the room and made their way to the central command station, where the rest of their team was waiting. It was a small group, just a handful of soldiers, a mix of humans and Zeni rebels, all of whom had volunteered to help overthrow the Empire. Zalina's supporters were few, but they were loyal, and that loyalty had brought them to this moment. They gathered around a table, where a large map of the Geni capital was displayed. Zalina pointed to various locations, outlining their plan of attack. The human colonies had sent reinforcements, and they had a few ships at their disposal, but the odds were still heavily against them. Elias took a seat at the table, listening carefully as Alina explained their next steps. They would strike under the cover of night, when the Zeni would be least prepared. The plan was simple, but that didn't make it any less dangerous. Elias's stomach tightened as he thought about the lives that would be lost, the risks they were taking. But it was a risk they had to take. As the final details were sorted out, Elias found himself feeling a strange sense of peace. He didn't know if they would succeed, but he knew that they had to try. For Jelena, for the human colonies, and for the chance at a future without war. That night, the small group of rebels moved out, their steps light but determined. Elias felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on him as they boarded their ships and prepared for the final push. It was now or never. The journey to the Zeni capital was long, the stars around them silent, as they sped through the galaxy. Elias couldn't help but think of the home he had left behind, the simple life he had once known. He had never imagined he would be part of something like this, never imagined he would be fighting for peace in the heart of an alien empire. But here he was, standing beside Zalina, the princess who had risked everything to change the future. As they approached the capital, Elias felt a lump form in his throat. The city was massive, its towering structures stretching far above them. It was a place of beauty and power, a city built on conquest and domination. But Elias wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Ready? Zelina's voice cut through his thoughts. He looked at her and saw the same determination in her eyes that had drawn him to her in the first place. Ready, Elias replied. The ship landed on the outskirts of the city, and the small group of rebels moved quickly through the streets, their faces set with determination. They reached the communication center and took out the guards with ease, disabling the enemy's communication systems. It was only a matter of time before they reached the throne room. Elias could feel the tension in the air as they approached the heart of the city. He knew that everything was riding on this moment. If they could take the throne room, they could end this war. They reached the doors of the throne room, and Elias turned to Zelina. "This is it," he said. Zelina nodded, her face calm. "It is." With that, the doors opened. Inside, the Geni Emperor, her father, sat on his throne, his cold eyes narrowing as he saw his daughter. "You dare challenge me, Zelina?" he growled. Zelina stepped forward, her voice steady and strong. "Yes, I do. Because it is time for the Zeni to change. It is time for peace." Elias stood beside her, ready for whatever came next. This was the moment they had all been fighting for.